My name is Paweł. I'm very happy to see so many of you, although I'm not that able well to see in the slides. But right, as Kate mentioned, I used to write a lot of code in Java for like 12 years probably, and then I officially moved to the dark side, right? And now I'm taking care of, I think, 11, almost 12 teams of mostly DevOps and Python folks at Xibia Poland. And today I will tell you a story about leadership dilemmas. So let's start off with a plan. Maybe I will ask you, who of you is a leader, who is responsible for some people? Raise your hand, please. Right, we have quite some. Who is doing stuff like hiring, firing, and salary negotiations? Right, there is some of you as well. Right, so we'll start with the journey of becoming a leader and how it is similar to becoming an adult. What kind of problems can we encounter there? There we are going to look at the decision-making context. When you have dilemmas, you have to make decisions, and there is always some factors that you have to include. They're the heart of our land of dilemmas, right? So we have some extreme on the left, some extreme on the right, the area of grayness in between, and we are going to navigate that. And then some, so-called miscellanea. If you don't know how to call the last chapter of a presentation, you can always go with miscellanea, but let's call it thoughts here. Right, so let's start our journey. So how being a leader is kind of similar to being an adult. When you're in your teens, you have this idea that adults are those mysterious creatures who always know what to do, they are responsible, they know what to do, they know how the world works, right? And then on the day of your 18th birthday, bam, and nothing happens, right? You still don't know what to do. And there's 20s, 30s, 40s. They say the first 40 years of childhood in men is the most difficult. I'm not sure about this. But in general, we are still often in those situations feeling like children in the fog, wandering in the fog. We don't know what to do in many situations. And now with leaders, when you're a line employee, you might have this idea that leaders are those mysterious creatures that know what to do in all the situations, and they know all the procedures of the company. They know what's on the CEO mind, right? But then when you become a leader, you get this nice footage in your email, suddenly, bam, nothing happens, right? Even after years and years of experience, you're often feeling like this child wandering in the fog. All right, sometimes you encounter a crossroads. You can go left, you can go right. You have to make a choice. So there's a dilemma, a word from Greek meaning that we have to make a choice, and both options are bad. Right? Something bad is going to happen. There's a trade-off, all right? Sometimes they might be more than two options, or maybe multiple choices, like a maze, right? Sometimes it's like a swamp. You don't have a clear, discrete options in front of you. You might go forward, you might go maybe left, right, maybe at an angle, but you don't know the angle, right? Maybe you should take some blade and hack and slash through the wilderness, or maybe you should take a dive and look for underwater tunnel. We don't know. Tricky situation. So let's now look at the decision-making context. Right? What factors do you have to take into account when looking at dilemmas? First, there's a situation. Right? For instance, a project manager comes to you and says, one of your people screw up. Or one of your people comes to you and says, the project manager screwed up. Right? Maybe there's a fire on production, maybe the client is unhappy, somebody wants to quit, there's a conflict in the team, something is happening, and you have to address it or be proactive before this happens. Right? Then we have some consequences of our choices. There is a ship, there's a hole in the ship, and the question is the hole below the waterline or above the waterline? Or maybe the ship is on fire. Right? How much time do we have? Can we revert this decision that we made? And of course, business. Right? If we have a good product, a lot of money, we can often throw the money on the problem and solve this in that way. Maybe give people some raises, maybe hire more people. Not always works, but we may try. Then there are different perspectives. There is a fact, something happened, but in order to know what really happened, you have to talk to many people. Everyone sees this differently, right, from different angle. So we have to glue this together. Then, of course, you have your people, right? Everyone is different. Everyone has needs, some fears, some desires, and you have to account for that. Then there is the leader, the you, right? you have different personality, different needs and wants, and different leadership style. Two leaders can do stuff totally differently and still arrive at the same outcome. And there is an organization. Like, we have a lot of frameworks to describe how organizations work. We have colors, we have matrices, right? There are different sizes, different industries. What's important here is that, especially when you're changing the industry, the organization, be careful. You have to see how they do things there, right? It might be very different from your old organization. Right, so let's dive into our land of dilemmas. First, individualism and equality. So should we treat everyone individually according to their needs, or everyone equally? So I have this one friend of mine. She has a lot of plants, flowers in her apartment, and she's watering them exactly the same. Right? What is happening from time to time is that some of the plants too much water or not enough water, right? And it's not very good with people usually. But on the other hand, if we treat everyone differently, if you let different people do different things, it might create a sense of unfairness, like why somebody is allowed to go to so many conferences and I'm not, for instance, right? So what we can do here is look at what kind of value this person is bringing into the company, into the team, right? Do they share a lot of knowledge? Do they help others? Do they create nice atmospheres? Usually those people are allowed to do a little bit more, and others understand this. Okay, it's fine with them. Then we have the classic. Should we follow the rules or should we break them from time to time? So let's move back 4 decades. It's September 26, 1983. There's a Soviet command bunker that looks for launches of nuclear missiles from the United States towards Soviet Union. And there's an alarm in this bunker. Right? There's a red light. There's a lot of tension at this very moment. Right? There is a commander that is supposed to immediately report to his superiors in Moscow that the Yankees launched the attack. In a few moments, there are 4 additional dots. There are 5 missiles detected going towards Soviet Unions with atomic payload. Right? But the leader hesitates. Right? He knows that something is off. If the Yankees were to attack, they would launch thousands of missiles from all over the place. Right? And also, the system is quite new. It wasn't very well tested. Right? So he calls this a false alarm. He breaks the protocol, breaks the rule, and does not report what happened. Right? And it turns out that he was right. It was an error of sensors, a rare alignment of clouds, and the light was reflected towards the detector, and something went wrong. Soviet technology in the 80s, maybe not necessarily the highest one. But yeah, with rules, we have a lot of rules sometimes, right? If we don't follow any rules, there would be total chaos in an organization. If we follow all the rules to the letter, we can get to a halt, to a grind. There are always some corner cases that are not covered by rules. There are also always some situations where rules do not make really sense, right? And in those situations, it's a nice idea to follow the idea of the rule maker, not the literal rule, right? Also, the strong company culture helps here. If you have a good culture, strong culture that everyone shares, people have like common understanding. What can we do? What is not allowed to do? And it kind of works on itself without that many rules written. So sometimes it's a good idea to bend or break the rules. Then we have another dilemma: chain of command and our internal integrity, right? So sometimes something changes in the company, right? There are some new rules, right? You have to enforce it on your people, inform them, etc. But you don't like it, right? You don't like this change. It does not resonate with you. Now, what should you do, right? If you go with this to your people, it wouldn't work very well. It wouldn't be natural. They probably maybe won't listen to you even. So here, it's a good idea is to take some time. You have this framework of going through changes. So talk to your boss, ask why this was implemented, what happened, and give yourself some time to understand this, right, and get on board with this change, given that you have luxury of time, of course, and then it will work better with your people. Next one, we have scary monsters, right? So we are with our team. a nice room, and behind the window, behind the glass, there are those scary monsters, like layoffs in the company, so financial problems, some toxic managers, stuff like this, right? And the dilemma here is, should we cover this monster, right? Shield the team from this bad stuff, or should we be transparent, right? Should we have the morale or transparency? The tricky thing here is it's not this or that, right? In general, people will talk anyway, will gossip, and often it will just end up in a worse situation if you won't tell them anything, as opposed to being transparent. I had this one boss at some point that he used to come to me and tell me, "Hey, Paweł, I really shouldn't be telling you this, but this and that happened in the company, and this will happen as a result." And it was actually quite helpful for me at that time. Moving out from our monsters, there's a factory, a lot of steam, a lot of pressure, sometimes a little bit of slack. Right? So should we pressure those teams as much as possible to get this last 3% of work, right, of capacity, or should we just let them slack? Right? If you slack too much, then nothing is done basically, and the company goes bankrupt. If you pressure too much, right? What happens if you have a system that is on the verge of capacity and you add just a little bit, right? In computer terms, let's say you have 95% of memory taken, the RAM memory, and you add another 5%. It will start swapping between memory and hard drive. Instead of getting 5%, you will lose 80%. So the system fails catastrophically, and it might be kind of similar with people, right? If you add too much. So usually teams are good at regulating themselves quite well, right? If you think about changing something, probably you are pressuring too much, and it's not a good idea. The slack is this space where the magic happens, basically. People get creative, they solve all the problems they had for the last months, and they are quite happy. So think about this. Next one, stars and deadwood. So we have our top performers, the people who are doing a lot of work are great. They are our stars. And we have people who are just, incompetent. They don't give a damn, or so-called colloquially dead wood. Right? And the question here is: should you spend your energy and time and effort on your stars, or on the dead wood? Right? The instinct is to spend time where there's noise. Right? Somebody's complaining, something's not working, the production blew up. Right, so you spend a lot of time with those underperformers, you try to fix them, maybe fix their errors, come up with some improvement plans, etc., and you leave your stars, right? But there's a theory that a square root of people in the company does half the work, right? There's 100 people in the company, 10 people do half the work. If you have 10,000 people, then just 100 people will do half the work. So now imagine if you shift just a little bit of your effort from your underperformance to your top performance. Not to micromanage them, of course, but to remove all the possible slight less friction, make sure they are just happy, right? You can get so much more. But of course, people deserve to have second chances or even third chances, and you have to be careful before you cross somebody out with this situation. All right, and last but not least, the three-body problem. Who has read the book or seen the series? All right, we have some people. All right, so we have three bodies in our equation. There's the team, there's the company, and there is you, the leader. Right, and often we spend a lot of energy thinking about how to make the team happy, how to make the company happy, but you forget about yourself, right? You are the link between those two. If you don't work, something here is happening, then the whole system falls apart, right? So be careful to also look at yourself at work, whether you are actually feeling good, if you are not in some bad mental position, if you are not going into some burnout or overwork. Be careful. Right, and so miscellanea at the end. So again, remember, there's no one algorithm for leadership. Leaders can do stuff very differently and still converge at the same point, the same goal in the end. If you don't know what to do, often in IT we have this, idea to use logic, algorithms. It's something that we do in our work, but sometimes it just doesn't work. We don't have the data, we don't have the good algorithm. we can't explain why something should be done, but we kind of feel it in our guts, right? We have this intuition, this gut feeling. But we are scared of this intuition. Intuition is not for IT people in the end, right? Not right. Sometimes you have to just trust your gut that you have a good intuition and follow that. If you really don't know what to do, you can try to do an experiment if you will still be able to look at yourself in a mirror after making this decision. If not, maybe you should change the decision, or maybe at least you should change how you inform people that are involved in this to keep your internal integrity. Right, folks, that's it. This QR code leads to my LinkedIn. You are welcome to join the party. I'm also on Twitter, while it still works, or X, or however it is called. And I have a blog that has a Java in name, but there is no Java for probably like 7 years there. There is actually a longer version of this presentation. Originally it was 1 hour. I think I have 40 minutes there. There are also slides and some articles based on that. So you're welcome to check it out. So folks, take care of your teams, take care of yourselves, and thank you very much.
All right, we have room for a couple of questions. For the ones that don't know, you need to follow to AgileByExample.com/ask to ask a question. But some of you folks already knew that, so we have collected some. Let's start with a very, very short question. Did you generate those images on PPT with AI?
Yes.
Thank you.
Midjourney 4, 5, and 6. They are mixed.
And another question is going to be a little harder. Do you have some rule of thumb about how careful we need to be when making decisions that impact people? Reverting back code is far easier than reverting decisions.
Actually, it's quite common when you're becoming a leader that you are too careful, especially if you have the technical background. You have this instinct to check all the possible data, all the outcome before you execute the algorithm, right? So what is hard in this to make decision faster? This is what you have to learn. So usually, you should be less careful, to be honest.
All right, and the last question. What do you perceive as strong culture? And how to build one? I know this is a big question, so at least the first part.
Yeah, I think it's kind of important that the company focuses on people, right? Not just on money and income. I don't know, it can be somehow felt. For example, if you look at the turnaround in the company, like how often people are leaving. Like in our company, we have a bunch of people that are working there for 18 years, for instance, or 10 years. And we put quite a lot of effort into building the so-called culture book. In Poland, we have around 150 team leaders, and all of them at some point were discussing with the management and with the employee branding. They were presented the prototype of our culture book, and they were asked about it. Right? What do you think about this? What should be added? What should be removed? And it was kind of like a common effort back then. And I think now it worked out quite well.
Okay. Thank you, Paweł.